GKFX Prime presents the Market Analysis Webinar.
Hello traders, welcome to another video. Yes, it's that time of the week, time for another weekly analysis. I'm your host Dima. As always, I'll be taking you through some of the potential opportunities coming up this month in the markets for you to look at. So hope you had a good week last week. Let's have a look at what we've got for this week that we can possibly trade. So starting off again, as usual, with the economic calendar, let's look at what we've got. Monday, we have from New Zealand, we've got the CPI numbers. On Tuesday, we've got from Australia monetary policy minutes, and that could be an important one. Wednesday, we've got pound CPI numbers, and we also have CPI numbers from Canada on the CAD. So that's that. Thursday, again, Australian unemployment numbers, and Friday, we've got retail sales on pound and CAD. The two major ones, I'll be looking at these on Wednesday, the CPI numbers and the monetary minutes from Australia. We do have two pound news, we have two Australian news, and we have two CAD-based news. So look out for that. All right, let's jump straight to it. Let's have a look at what we've got for this week here on the charts. All right, we've selected a few for this week. Some are a little bit different to the previous weeks this week, and maybe a little bit different to the ones before, because we are coming up to a different scenario, different setups in the market. The market is ever changing. Just remember that it's not always going to be the same patterns, the same setups on all the charts, or the same charts every week. It is going to change, some change around, some you'll have to take a break from and then look at others and then shift. So go with the flow that you see in the market. All right, let's start off with the major ones here. We've got the Aussie dollar to look at. Now, we have a very clear bearish momentum here for many weeks, and potentially going to look for that to continue into this week. So the issue here, with the caveat here in this case, is that we are deep into this retracement after this move higher. So I am not expecting a big move from here. We are very much extended to the short side. So it will be a slightly riskier trade, slightly lower probability. So let's have a look at how we can approach this. So here we've got last week, we've got a move lower, we had a retracement and a continuation. So we're looking for that continuation lower, carrying on with that downside. However, this is, as I just mentioned, a slightly riskier one because we have that huge sell-off and we don't want to be selling at such a cheap price. But what do we have? Well, I can see here a little gap in the price. I've had this big move down. So if we do get at the start of the week a slightly move higher to get a better price, and then a breakdown lower, that would be the scenario to look out for here. If I zoom back out, just look in terms of targets, I can see that the next low is down here. You can look at that on the daily. There's this swing point right here. Actually, I'll just adjust it. It's this little bit sticking out right here. So I'm looking to bag some pips on the way there. That's 200 pips away. It doesn't have to be the whole move really to make a profit. You don't have to be correct about that. Now, I will be watching out for this swing high, because that will then invalidate this idea if we now break this structure high. And then the other possibility is, of course, coming down to the low side, the low part, breaking this previous low, and then a pullback to continue the move downwards is the other possible scenario to look at here. But again, the probabilities don't really stack in our favor in this case unless we see the situation change. So let's see how the market evolves and if it breaks and then gives a nice clean price action from there. So we'll leave that as that on the Aussie dollar. Let me move on to the next one. Next, I'm going to look at, let's look at pound yen. Let's go to the weekly. And here's what we can see on the weekly. So we had this very, very sharp decline here with this wick, which came to the downside and then reversed very, very heavily a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So now we have this continuation of that bullish momentum. We have this level up here that I'll be paying attention to, and I'll be looking for the market to reach into that point there. Right, so with this higher time frame idea, let's go to the 4-hour and let's see what we've got. So I have this as a potential target, and what I'll be looking for is a nice retracement to a better price, and from there the probabilities would then stack up in order to buy from there. And we've got this low right here that I'll be paying attention to. Breaking that low would invalidate this idea, because we'll be breaking a structure and then we'll be going into possibly a bigger range, a rangy market, which becomes a little bit dangerous because we don't know what's going to happen from there. So let's see if the scenario, if the market comes to our favor, into our scenario. If not, then just going to have to let it be for now. You can see here we've got this break higher, moved higher, and we've been moving higher from here, lower higher lows and lower highs, etc. Higher lows and higher highs, I should say. And from now we are continuing to the upside, at least for the beginning. Bear in mind pound news, so take that into account. As always, that's why we're looking at the economic calendar. And also with the Aussie, we've got Aussie news, don't we? Another pound pair to bear in mind here, pound Swiss. Now, here's the pound Swiss, what we were looking at last week, and that indeed was the case, moving higher. However, the market didn't quite drop into that area right here. So going to reassess this whole scenario. And now I'm looking at something else. First of all, looking at the weekly, you can see that continuation higher. So I'll be looking for a move higher into the next obvious area right here, and then right here. So that's a bit far away, so I'm just going to pay attention to this one at 1.17. Looking at the 4-hour now, I see this break of the new highs into new highs, and now I'll be looking for this whole move to come down into a nice retracement area. If I just remove this, and then continuing to the upside, that would be my favorite scenario. Now we've got this very big bullish momentum, very clear to see that we are now in a bullish environment. Higher lows here, 1, 2, and then possibly 3 in the next one. Higher highs we've got here, 1, 2, and then possibly another one up here. So we'll see if that market continues. It's certainly showing that at the moment, and last week it pushed higher as expected. So we're going to just continue jumping on that train and ride that wave. Let's see how the price action evolves. First of all, at the moment we are still in a shallow retracement. We want to see a nice deeper price that would increase the probabilities, and highly favorable scenario in this case. And we do have a very weak Swiss franc right now, based on last week. Continued decline for the Swiss franc, which means that any currency attached to the Swiss franc would likewise move accordingly. So that's the pound Swiss there for you. Again, remembering pound news, so we might want to match that with the timing of the news. Let's see how the price action evolves, and you should see the volatility kick in on those times and days. Yet another pound pair here. We're going to look at Euro pound in this case, and let's have a look here what we've got. So a few weeks ago we had this massive wick rejection, now looking to continue to the downside with that momentum, and we'll see what happens here. Previous week, the indication that we have at the moment, at the very least, is we have continued bearishness. So big rejection, big upside down pin bar here, and the week before last was indecisive here, and then after that we had that bearish. So this week from previous week engulfed the week before that. We have that, we can see that here, closed bearish, so now continued on the bearish scenario. Look into that continuation. So the next continuation down from where we're at the moment will be down here about 150 pips away, which will be this swing that I can see right here, and then after that possibly this one right here. I'm going to go with the first one as that's the nearest target, so that's about 140 pips away. Okay, looking down to the lower time frame as we usually do. What am I seeing? Well, I'm seeing this swing to this low, and I'm seeing here the halfway mark and above would be the interesting area as a higher probability sell scenario. So a slight further pullback up here possibly, and then a continuation to the downside. We're not that far off here, to be honest, so we may see an immediate push away from here and another collapse, but the price action will tell us what to do. So let's see how the market evolves at the start of the week, Monday, and then going into Tuesday, especially with the news. We'll see how that works out. Now, if that does not happen, I'm looking at this high right here as the invalidation point, and beyond that, this whole idea breaks down, because that would breach the high of the previous week, which we do not expect to breach, because that is the point where the market moved away from, and we're now headed lower. So the downside is looking highly probable at the moment. All right, let's see how it develops, yeah, at the beginning of next week. May want to give it a bit of time. There's some bank holidays around as well. Okay, so those are the pound-based pairs. Watch out for that on the news. Let me just go now into Swiss yen. So the Swiss yen here is a little bit of a tricky one, because we have a couple of factors to bear in mind. So looking at the very big picture on the monthly, well, what we can see is that we have bullishness on the monthly. We may have continued bullishness on this month as well. So at the moment, the overall factor is the bullish scenario. And last week we also closed bullish. However, because of the weakness, a recent weakness in the Swiss, we had this few weeks of sideways movement, and we would have expected Swiss yen to come down. Now, let me just remove all these previous drawings so that we don't get confused. Let's take all that away, clean up the chart so it's nice and clean. And let's have a look what we've got here. So previous week closed bullish, and then the question is, are we going to continue with that bullish momentum? Well, considering how weak the Swiss is, I don't know whether that will be continued. What I'm seeing is, first of all, this move down, and now we have retraced higher here into the 61.8 level. So the question is, are we going to continue higher, breach that point, or are we going to stay with that level? So here's the favorite scenario. The favorite scenario is the fact that the Swiss is weak, and because it's weak, we're going to look for the downside. So I would favor the downside. However, I will leave the possibility that if we break this high right here, then we are not going to look at that any longer. So we are in this retracement. We hit the 61.8 here. Let me just remove the fib. And now, what are we going to look at if we see the sell scenario? Well, sell scenario would be a rejection, a very clear rejection of this level. We want to see these lows get broken, create new lower lows. And once those lower lows are created, we've got break, then we'll see a possible retracement, and we'll wait for that to happen and pull back, and then continuing to the downside to take out this low right here. So this was a significant move, a very, very big move a few weeks ago. So this was 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, in fact, in September. We had this massive 800 pip move in 1 week, this huge range. So that indicates some momentum to the downside here. So we're going to have to wait for that to confirm, wait for the markets to show its hand. At the moment, what we do see is this big ranging movement. So this becomes very tricky to see which way the market is going to go, and we just kind of have to wait for it to unfold very clearly. And we're going to want to see another big bearish day, big bearish move here to big bearish candles like so. If I go to the daily, bearish candles perhaps like this one, and a candle pattern to confirm the downside. And once that happens, then it'll be a much safer, higher probability entry. So far, this is the tricky part, but I just wanted to go into it and have a look here so that we can use this as an example. At the moment, the scenario is a bit unclear. Right, that's the Swiss yen. Let's go to oil, another firm favorite for us, isn't it? And oil, this is what we were looking at last week. So last week we were looking for the continuation of this bullishness, this clear big bullish candle. Looking at the 4 hour, here's what was expected, a move into the zone here and a push higher, which we did happen, but the market moved lower still. So this is what I was marking out last week, which area will be respected, so to speak. And it wasn't this one, which didn't expect because that was a shallow pullback. And it turns out it looked like it would have been this, but it did not happen. So now that we're rejecting this area, we're going lower. So now I'm expecting the next area, which be down here, to be the area that we'll be interested in. We had this break higher. All these areas have been broken. So we're now in a bullish scenario. So we're going to continue with last week's idea, a move lower. We have this gap in the market right here, so that will be interesting. Really looking for something to happen around this zone, and then perhaps heading higher, and then we're going to have, should see if that happens, if you get a push higher, higher highs and higher lows, and then we are back in that bullish momentum, bullish trend that we are currently seeing, that is developing. So keep this in mind. Do expect a further drop. If that doesn't happen and we don't drop, then of course the other scenario to bear in mind is here, this high, a break of this high, and then pull back to get a better price to continue is also a possibility, or we may get even a range. So it's at the moment not clear. That's what I would say. That's the summary here for now. Let's see how it develops first of all before making a decision. So I'm going to keep an eye out for the zone. It may require a daily candle, may require a little bit more patience here. Oil is very volatile in nature and moves very quickly, and price action is not always as smooth as currencies, for example. So that's oil here. Scenario continuing from last week. A little bit more patience required on this case, so bear that in mind when you're looking at it. Lastly, got Bitcoin, another old favorite. Now, here's the scenario that we were looking at last week. I was saying that this is the favored place to sell from. That did not happen. We continued ranging. The market broke down further and then made these little retracement and then had a massive sell-off before this reversal, sharp reversal. So now that we're still in this range, still continued range, then I'm going to stick with the same idea that I had initially. And that is the move into this zone here before a continued sell-off. So that's what I'm looking at the moment. Now, if that doesn't happen, the breakdown of this scenario is a break of this level. So if we have a break of this level, this whole idea then collapses. No longer going to expect that, because a break of this level would indicate further downside momentum. And what I'd like to see is the bearer price to the upside before the sell-off. And when the sell-off happens, if it happens, of course, not going to make any predictions, then a breakdown, and then again a new trend forming, lower highs and lower lows would be the idea, into the low of this range, and then possibly into a much deeper low around the 15k level. That's what I'm looking at the moment. Right, so that's that for Bitcoin. At the moment, no ranging, no clear price action. It's just a big fat ranging market, and it's clear to see that right now. Don't want to be trading these environments. These are tricky places to trade, and only for those who trade in a very, very short time frame. You will have to be wary of that. Right then, these are the charts for this week. I hope this has been useful for you and you got some value from this. If you are looking at these or looking at others, feel free to comment down below, like and subscribe. And if you have a comment or have a question, then post it down below and we'll take a look at that together. Right. Thank you for joining me this week. Appreciate you being here. Hope you have a very good trading week and a fruitful time, and learn from your mistakes if you do make any, and take that into your next week. Okay, that's all for now. I'll see you next week, as always, with more charts, with more analysis. Bye for now. Have a good week. Good luck in trading. Thank you.